Okay, so welcome to Fridays with Fiscal. Today we're going to do the review of all the applications for June 2025. I have the other upcoming trainings on there as well. Again, how to get there is on our main wiki page under trainings and meetings and trainings. And then at the bottom, the recaps for the calendar year and for June. And I'm going to start off with USAS, which had 2 regular releases in the month of June, as well as 1 hotfix. One of the improvements included the CAN financial detail report. Now the user can choose and select which option they want, whether they want to display the running fund balance or display or not to display the running fund balance. So let me go into the instance. This is the CAN financial detail report. And you see it's July 2nd. So I'm not able, it's not the first day of the fiscal year or the first day of the posting period, which in this case is June. So since it's not, I don't have this option to check mark. And if you hover, it'll say that option not available for the selected date. However, if I change it to 7/1, which is the beginning of the fiscal day year, or 6/1, which is the beginning of the current posting period or open posting period, I do have that option. Actually, once I clicked off of that, it populated the check mark, and then I have the option of unselecting it. And again, there's a tooltip that you can replace it with the remaining encumbrance column instead if the user chooses. So that's one improvement. The other improvement included the purchase order detail report. And this was to help with records requests that we were hearing that districts were getting across the state of Ohio. So now, and the issue was the PDF report was not showing like the unit price, the vendor number, the quantity, and that's what the records request, I guess, requested. So now if you go to Excel data report format, and it's only in this report format that those 4 extra columns are included. So I have a side-by-side example. This is the PDF without the quantity, the unit price, and here's the new Excel data, which the new fields are included. But again, it's only in the Excel data report format. Any questions on that? And then we had the AOS manual changes, which included changes in our software and driven by that manual as well. But we implemented features like with these restricted dimensions of the code that the start and stop dates could be populated. On those restricted accounts, then the user wouldn't see that account available like in the transaction drop downs to choose until the effective date or the start date. And then if they're not restricted, the accounts won't, no dates will be populated on the non-restricted account dimensions, and they will appear in the drop downs. Also, as like every year, we had some changes to the funds, functions, receipts, and object codes. This included additions, description changes, and elimination of certain codes. again, see the AOS manual for all those changes. And like every other year, sometimes the subject code changes, and that's per the EMIS manual. So we made those subject code changes in the software. And then per EMIS or DEW, oh, I'm so sorry, this was for another district that I was testing. DEW EMIS, we implemented a change to allow the maximum allowed value for the square footage for the building. So when you are under the periodic menu, under the building profiles, these square footage can't be more than 1 million. That's all that implemented. And then again, the AOS restricted accounts are regarding the general fund with the special cost centers in the range of 9,000s, X through Z are only for the general fund. So we implemented, let me show this live though. When I create the account for one of those general fund restricted accounts that can be used with AOS instruction. For example, general fund 901X. And I'm just going to pick a fund type. When I go to save, it's going to give you a pop-up just to ask that it's starting with a 9, X, Y, and Z. Do you really want to continue? You can continue, but it's like an extra step to pause for the user. And then before the hot fix, I believe, you would get this error when you're trying to use 006 in one of those special cost centers. And this was the error. You will no longer get this in the system. You are allowed to use these special cost centers in other funds other than the general fund. So again, this screenshot of the error will not happen in other funds outside of the general fund. Does anybody have any questions on that or anything that I've covered? Okay. A bug that we fixed included voiding disbursements, and it erroneously created duplicate payable journals. So that's been corrected. And then an internal patch, which updated something beyond my expertise in the Grado version. So if you guys have any questions, please interrupt me or stop or put it in the chat. But I'll go ahead and move on to the inventory releases for the month of June, which included one. And that included the hard user lockout like we had in the other applications recently. So just to show you, this user has locked or tried to log in 5 times already. And now it says can't speak. Now it says the login failed, your account has been locked. So those with permission can go in. Well, first I'll show you on the account. You can see, and I'll make it, oh, I thought it would be darker. Right here, it says failed attempts. So this user tried 5 times. You can see that. You can't unlock it here, even though I have permissions. You have to go to the grid. So you just click that and the user is unlocked. So that's similar to the other applications too, but just to show you in the inventory application and to review it. The account must be unlocked before the user can change the password. And then once the user's account is unlocked, that failed attempt box that I showed you that said 5 will now reset to 0. Or if it was like 1 through 4 attempts and the 5th try, the user successfully entered the right password, it would reset to 0 as well. And then the item importer was improved to allow updating the status on non-capitalized items only. You can't use this for items to change the status to the disposed of either. It's just for non-capitalized items. And then, excuse me, a couple bugs that we fixed included correcting filtering a fund type on the fund grid, which previously resulted in an error. And then also corrected the audit report to run without dates when the tag number is specified. So you don't have to fill in, oh, oops. There's a little tooltip. This field is required if no tag is provided. If you specify tag, you don't need that. And then an internal correction too for inventory. And that's all that I have for USAS and inventory. If anybody has any questions, please speak up, or I'll pass it on to Lori, I believe. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Okay, let me get
You too, Pat.
Oh, thank you.
my screen shared here. Okay, we're good to go. Stuff situated. Okay, hopefully everybody's seeing my screen okay. We will move on to the payroll side. Make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. We had a couple releases in the month of June, and we'll cover those now. The first was updating the ability to edit the job calendar type. So, users were wanting to maybe reuse something that they've used in the past, and instead of creating new types, they now have the ability to reuse those. So what I'm talking about is if you go to the job calendar option, in my example here is the job calendar type sunshine. So if I edit that, previously this type was not editable. So this is now editable, and users can change that to make it work for what they want to use it for going forward. So if I save that, it does then update other areas in the application where the job calendar type touches. And I've listed those here. So those would be compensation, the pay group, and then all the reports where you can select a job calendar, like the job calendar report and the new contract report. So again, if I would go to the compensation and I would add that job calendar type to my grid, you can see now, this all says vacation. Likewise, under pay group, if I go to pay group and I look at that particular calendar that's tied to that pay group, it's now been updated there as well. And then obviously, like I mentioned, the report side of things where you can select the job calendar, it's, reflected here as well. This is audited, so if we would run the audit report, we would see that it was, that's kind of an old example. Let me refresh that and run that for today, since I just changed it. And you can see here, oops, well, it'd help if I'd select the right options. I'm sorry. Let's select job calendar. You can see now in the audit report, hopefully, I'll make this a little bigger so you can see it. The old value was sunshine and it got changed to, reflect the new value I entered. So it is audited. So again, if users want to, start reusing those calendars or make changes to those for, better description or type, they're able to do that. The next update that was made is when a payable is voided, it's actually now cloned instead of just moved, and basically like cleared out of any kind of record that it happened. And what we mean by that is previously, if a payable was voided, if you would go to, under payments, you would go to payee, and you would look at, if I click on that payment that would have been voided and look down here at this highlight view, and the option that says show payables paid details would be gone. So if I would void this payment, and I can show you that here in a second, now you have the ability to still come back to this, show this payables paid detail, and it's gonna give me the details of that that voided payment. Prior to this update, if I would void the payment, come look at the payment, those details would be gone. So instead of just basically removing those voided payment details, we actually clone those, and that's what we mean by cloning, where you're still able to see the details of the payment once something is voided. And I can show you that here quick if we want to step through an example. And I apologize, my files are very old here, so the dates are going to look a little strange. But again, if I come back and I single click here, this payment is voided, you can see, and it still allows me to look at the details of that payable. So that's what we mean by that update here. Excuse me, the next update that was made, we added a brand new option under the Auditor of State reports called the GASB 101 report. And our development team, in particular, Mark, our project manager, worked with the Auditor of State's office to create something that they're wanting, as far as a report that can be helpful for that GASB 101 reporting. And we took parts of those other Auditor of State reports that are already available, and then added some additional information. In particular, right now we've included the leave information. So under reports, if you go to the Auditor of State's reports, you'll now see that new option that we've added, that GASB 101 report. The dates that you want to use when you're running the report are the fiscal year. So you'll put in the fiscal year, and you can see it gives you the ability to create this in Excel or CSV. You can run it for select employees if that's something that you're interested in doing. And then I have a copy of what the report looks like already generated here. You can see it gives all the leave information. I added a note here. There's still some missing pieces to this, so it's kind of a work in progress. In particular, we know that the fund and the function part of this report are still, not available or included. And so we'll continue to add additional pieces to this, you know, in the future. So it's not quite there yet, and including everything that, you know, is needed for this reporting, but it's a good start. So that is available for users to begin using to help report their GASB 101 reporting. Some improvements that we made. One is to comply with a new standard that the NACHE, the entity that controls your ACH reporting. They want the entry description to always say payroll. So I've included a screenshot here of just the snippet out of that document that they provided, that, you know, states that this is now mandatory when the ACH files are created. We always did default this information in the ACH file to payroll in the past. So this isn't a big change or major change on our end. However, what will happen is in that ACH source, in that entry description, if a user would happen to enter something in that field, we will always default the value to payroll to meet these new standards. And then anything other than payroll that a user might have entered in that field, we will also include the first three characters. So again, what we're referring to is if you go to core and you go to ACH source, this entry description here is what we're talking about. So again, in this case, you know, discovered is entered in that field. We would always default this, even though something else other than payroll is entered in the field, to payroll, and then it would be followed by, in this example, DIS. So if something mistakenly gets entered in there, you know, never fear, it will default to payroll, and then, you know, users won't have problems with when they go to upload, or the bank goes to process their ACH file. The other improvement that we made was just a slight change to the Management Council logo. When you log in, we just updated this, you know, and removed basically the words under the logo to make it pop a little more and make it a little more legible. So that's all that update was. A couple bugs that were fixed. The STRS Advanced Position Report. We were getting reports that users were getting that null pointer, you know, generic error on occasion, and this was due to the report looking at archived and, you know, non-archived STRS payroll items. So what was happening was, you know, prior to this update, we were looking at those archived records, and we would find, you know, an employer STRS payroll item that was assigned to position 1, and we would assume that there should be another record out there for the other part, also withheld at the position level. And when it didn't find something that matched up at the position level, they would get this null pointer exception error. So again, the workaround until this bug was fixed was to go out into those archived records and then add a stop date prior to the current system date. So, you know, that has been resolved. So that error should no longer happen. We're ignoring those archive records altogether. So users should no longer receive that error they were receiving before. Excuse me. Another enhancement was to now add an adjustment for Medicare for the applicable gross. So, when you run your quarter report, I know many times, you would reach out to us and say, hey, how do I get that Medicare pickup applicable gross removed from the regular line of Medicare and only report that on the pickup line? So what I'm referring to is, oops, I must have these out of order. Here we go. I had them in order. I just went out of order on my screen here. So what I'm talking about is here, say we forgot to, begin withholding Medicare pickup for this employee. So this is what the quarter report would look like, as it was withheld non-Medicare pickup. So how do I correct that? If we go to adjustments, and I'm going to search for the employee, I already have some of these adjustments added. There's a description here. So if I open this adjustment that I added, when I select Medicare, that payroll item, and I select applicable gross, you'll now see there's this apply to employer pickup checkbox that wasn't there before. So if I check that box, then, and in this case, I've just added or checked the box for quarter to date. I'm going to show you then what it looked like before was when I would add, some kind of adjustment for that Medicare pickup. This is what it would look like, but I never had a way to basically remove and move this just to show up on one line. Okay, so now we do have that ability. You can see it here. And by checking that box, I have the ability then to remove it from the line, the non-Medicare pickup line, and apply it to that Medicare employer pickup line. Okay, so I would post, a negative for the regular and then a positive for the pickup. And then that would give me the look like this. I didn't post the negative for the regular. I wanted to show you an example of how, it would look prior to this update. So this is what was given, us troubles. We never had a way to remove that, which we always said, just make a note of it and move on. But now we have a way to actually fix that on the report and make the totals reflect what they should be. Yay, right? With good old quarter report and Medicare pickup. You have to love it. Okay. The last then fix was an improvement to the reporting entity count summary report. We included an enhancement on the 2025.9.1 hotfix to include vacation days in the absence count for AMIS reporting. And in turn, we just forgot to update the reporting entity count summary report. So when districts were running this, they would get that missing property exception error. And that was due to the vacation update that was made in that prior hotfix, and we just forgot to update or missed updating that part in the report. So that's been fixed, so users will no longer get that error when they're running that reporting entity count summary report. And then lastly, we just had some patches, some updates on, internally. One was a patch to remove unused positions for a district, and they actually had run out of numbers to use. And that all kind of happened when they migrated from Classic to the redesign. So we fixed that for them so they're able to reuse numbers that really weren't used to begin with. And then just a couple internal kind of back end changes that were made. A new endpoint for ESS date code notifications was created. And then we added an endpoint for the non-certificate employee ID and credential ID were added to the employee endpoint. So just a couple back end things that the programmers did to make things work for the ESS side. All right, that is all we have on the payroll side. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. If not, I will stop sharing here and I will pass it over to Mary. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. And good morning. All right, I'm going to move. I have a little bar here that I need to move. Sorry. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can.
Great. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn this on too. All right, so we're going to talk about version 2025 10.0, which was regular release, and then we had one fix. And then we also had a 2025 11.0. So some of the new features, the first ones affect timesheets. We are now allowing a split shift to be created for those that work two parts of the day and they are not consecutive. So we'll take a quick look at that so you can see how it's done. You go to, as an administrator or manager, you can create a new timesheet shift. And I have created one here. So we'll take a look at this one for bus drivers. And what I set up was a 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. shift, and then a 2:30 to a 5:30. You can also configure a break time for the first part of the day, and then a break time for the second part of the day. And in order to create this, you'll have to click on split shift first. You cannot have both a flexible shift and a split shift. Once you've created the shift, you'll need to select positions for that shift and apply those as well. And I am going to go to, I'm going to log out of the admin account and log in as a user, bus driver. So that you can see what shows up on the timesheet when they go to create the timesheet. So I will go to my timesheets. And we'll take a look at this one here. So what happens is well, this was the wrong one, sorry. The 25th. I apologize. I had so many of them that I created for him. Seven to 7:30. Oh, you know why? Because I created it for the wrong person here. Like, sorry about that. I even wrote it down. Yeah. Hopefully this one looks better. Again. That's better. So it'll create a 2 lines for each day. So for the 23rd, I'll have a 6 to 11 and then a 2:30 to 5:30. And at this point, both I had, if you noticed on the first screen, I had set up a quarter day for break. And both quarter days ended up on the split part of the timesheet. There is a Jira issue ESS 1383 that is going to fix that. So for now, they'll both appear on the second part of the day, but everything else is calculating correctly on that. And in the documentation, it also shows you that how to set it up and how the user's timesheet will look. Okay. Any questions on the split? Okay, the next item is a oh, sorry, there is something in the chat. Let me check real quick. Okay. So the next item on the timesheets is that there's a new report that will export the timesheet grid data. And again, that is for a timesheet manager. And when you're exporting timesheets, I can now print a grid that shows which timesheets I have exported. So if I select these, then it'll allow me to select the button to print the grid extract report. So I can print that and see which which timesheets I have extracted out. And it looks just like the grid. So it has that and the time period and the employee and the position, not anything else you might need on there. Okay. The next item that we have is a W-2 electronic delivery. This was introduced last sprint, but now there is a electronic delivery acknowledgement report that they can run. This can be run by the employee. And then there's also a new area, so I'll give you both of these, one for the admins where they can select, create an email that will go out to all the employees who have selected to receive electronic W-2 delivery. And they can configure that email and then they can do a mass send when they are ready for them to be viewed. and that will be only available for the admins. So this first part, the employee can run their own, the user can run their own acknowledgement. So if I go into this area here under the user profile, I can go to W2 acknowledgement. And then for this, for Denise, I already have her consent, but she can now print the acknowledgement from this screen. And it gives the decision that she made as well as the date that she made that decision. And if I decide to revoke that, I'm going to go back into that screen real quick. I got too many here, sorry. If I decide here to go back and revoke consent, I will need to submit that first, and then I can print it. It will not print until it is submitted and saved. So the employee can print whatever acknowledgement that they have. So I can give consent one day and then revoke it another. And the next item we have is a notification for date codes. These date code are ones like, for example, FBI check and BCI check. And these will show in the in-app notification on the home screen. I am going to go back here. And I'm going to log out as Denise and sign in as Brent because I've set up some notifications for him. So there's two items on the notifications. So the first one, this does take a second to update. It's checking for more notifications. So when they log in, they won't see it immediately. But one of the updates is to have the badge on here, say the number of notifications that are there. And then we also have each notification here that they can click on and see what it's for. When the date code notifications pop up, they are going to also show up here, but they are not going to have a link. They'll just go right back to the home page. They'll just see that their BCI or FBI check is about to expire. So that's where they will see it. And then to set that up, you would go into system. So I'm sorry, I got to go back in as a supervisor here. So this admin has the ability to make changes for this. So you would go into system and then date codes. And these date codes are, when you go to create them, they are connected to USPS and what's available there. So if you have date codes set up in USPS, that's what this will pull from, and you'll be able to use those. And I've set these two up. This one is a FBI check from the date of that's in the CF codes inside of USPS. It will calculate 365 days out, and 5 days before that, it'll start sending notifications to the employee that their FBI check is about to expire. On that first notification screen that the user gets, this will display there on the screen that they will need to update their FBI check. And the message to them will be, it's time to renew the FBI check. So both of those need to be filled in. Otherwise, they won't know what date code is expiring. You can create these and either make them active or inactive. So if you don't want to use them, you can, at the moment, you can deactivate them. And then you save them. Okay. So one thing about this is when I tested it on our environment, it was not actually sending the notification. So there is a Jira issue to take a look at that. Again, it's ESS 1384. And to verify that that is working as intended. So if there is a change on this, I will let you know what the change is on our next meeting. Okay, so there is one thing I did forget on the, let me make sure I skipped something, I'm sorry. On the W-2 emails, I'm gonna go back a second. The second part to that is that the electronic notification for those emails, the district manager or admin can set up this email here under system W-2. And then once they save that template, they can send an email out, and the email will go to anyone that has the acknowledgement set to yes. Right now, the save template and the send emails does not acknowledge that it's saving or that it's sending. In the next release, they're going to have, a success indication up at the top right that says that the template's been saved and that the emails were sent out. So if they decide to use this anytime soon, make sure the districts don't click on this more than once, because it will send emails a couple times. So I apologize, I forgot to tell you that part on there. I'm going to go back to date codes. I'm going to show you under USPS if I can get, I think I might have closed that out. I had opened up a session where I could, let me see if I have it on my other screen. In USPS, you will be able to in the CF area, which is your custom fields area of the employee screen, you'll be able to put those BCI and FBI checks in there, or the dates in there. And then that is what drives what's in ESS. So, sorry, let me see if I put it in here. So this area here inside of USPS. Oh, sorry, this isn't the right picture. I'll get it. Give me 1 second. Okay. So this right here is what's in ESS. Those are the ones we set up. So the date for the employee would be the BCI check date, and the FBI check date is what I was using on the employee screen. And that is what would determine 365 days from this date, or whatever amount of days that you decide when you're setting this up. This is the date code screen under ESS. And these number of days and the expiration days determine when those notifications go out to the employee. So they will have to have something in USPS for that. Okay, any questions on W-2s or date codes? All right. So we have another new feature to create an adjustment, which was very interesting, and everybody wanted it to come out, but it has been disabled. There were a couple issues with it, so they are going to work on that some more and improve it more, and then re-release it. So I won't be talking about the adjustments. Sorry, everyone. I know that was something you were looking forward to. I'm going to move on to the improvements. There were some background improvements that they wrote in order to look at some logs for messaging on the error message that people received. So they were trying to get those more detailed. They added some primary theming, is what they called it, for the buttons under the export leave history, so that it's more consistent with the rest of the buttons. The audit report would take a long time in certain areas, so they've improved the subquerying on that so that it would run faster. I discussed the badge already on the notification area for the home screen. So that will give you a number of notifications that you're receiving, and it runs every minute and it updates the number of notifications. The layout on the notification, when you clicked on the bell, had a couple scroll bars on it, so they've improved that to only have one scroll bar, and you'll be able to scroll down and see all the notifications on that. On the timesheets, originally on the timesheets, when you go to add a new line, it looked like nothing was happening. So when you would go in to the timesheets, let's find my screen. Oh, did I log out?
Mary, I think it's that first tab. I just think you're on the acknowledgement window in there.
Oh, there I am. Thanks. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So I went into, when you go into your timesheets, if you go to create another line within the timesheet, it would not focus on that last line. So now if I click on add, it will focus the screen down on the line that you wanted to add, and you can make your changes or additions there. So that was the improvement on that one. When you're creating the timesheet now, you will need to add a position. It's a required field. So if I go to create timesheet, I need to select the period and then which position. not selecting a position was causing some issues, so they made that a requirement at this point. Oops. Um, absence update data grid, the filters on that screen are now inclusive of the date that you entered. Previously, it was using a greater than, and now it's using greater than or equal to logic. And then on our area, we also had improvements on the management council logo, like Lori described earlier in hers. There were a couple bug fixes. The one I want to talk about is the timesheet grid, which was on the hot fix, was creating an error, and you couldn't even bring up a timesheet if there were some line items that did not have, that were blank or didn't have information on them. So they've corrected that, so it will allow a null, and that way you can still bring up your timesheet and fix it and adjust it. The patches, we had the views were updated and fixed. You wouldn't notice anything on the front end, but it was all back end updates. And then some dependency upgrades for the software that they're using to write these screens with. Okay, any questions on ESS and the upgrades? Okay, Michelle has some exciting news for us, so I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Well, before that, I think Lori had a couple additional things that she wanted to mention before I wrap it up.
Yes, sorry. Let me get things. Share here. Okay, hopefully you're seeing my screen here. Is everybody seeing a Word document that says like Ohio budget bill?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. All right. We've had some questions this week, and then a couple of questions this morning during our meeting here. And I appreciate you guys asking this morning, because I should have just gone through it with you all when we were covering the payroll items, but it has to do with, are we aware and what changes, are on the horizon in regards to the budget bill, and, the Ohio budget. So Mark, the project manager, put together a wonderful document of all of the changes that will need to take place on our end with these changes. So I've kind of put together, that information in this document here. And this, for those of you that have reached out through a ticket, this is what we've been providing to you. And I know that Mark planned on providing this information at the next prioritization working group meeting as well. But just so we're all on the same page, when it comes to the Ohio budget bill, um, until the Department of Taxation puts out like official documents, we will not be changing anything in the payroll software. But it has been, passed and signed. So, what that means is, for tax year 2025, the rates are changing. So if the top rates change. So if that does end up, affecting any employees, they will just apply for a refund at the end of the calendar year when they file their taxes. And we have information regarding that in a link here. And then beginning tax year 2026, Ohio tax just transitions to that flat 2.75 rate. So, you know, we will obviously be putting all this in place on our end. So, you know, just making you aware of what changes, you know, are probably on the horizon when it comes to Ohio state tax. When it comes to the federal budget bill, you guys all see this, I'm sorry, should have asked that before. Again, we are not going to put any changes in place until the publication 15 and 15T has been updated. And the IRS has 90 days, you know, from the date the bill was signed to put those in place. So we might not hear anything officially until the end of October, early November. Basically, what is involved in that passing of that budget bill on, you know, on our end is the overtime. So tips were included in that bill. Obviously, tips don't apply, you know, to schools, so we don't have to worry about that piece. But beginning January 1st, so it's retroactive through December 31st of 2028. There are some qualifying overtime amounts that employees can then deduct when they file their taxes. So, you know, that's the caps for single versus married filing jointly. We, for 2025, you know, may just be able to just give them an estimate. And there may be some changes needed as far as a new type of adjustment for the federal tax to maybe report or help, you know, districts report on their W-2 those overtime payments that they've paid through payroll using the miscellaneous pay type. So those are just some things that we, you know, are gonna have to look at to help employees then report that or be able to deduct that on their taxes. The withholding side of things is not gonna change. So that piece, it doesn't involve withholding. It's when the employees file their taxes that they're able to deduct those amounts. So again, the withholding side of things is not gonna change at all. When it comes to the federal tax tables, there were no changes for 2025. And then, you know, we'll have to, you know, probably they'll come out with new, just the regular, you know, inflation adjustment changes for 2026. So, yes, thank you to those that reached out and asked some questions, you know, about that. I totally overlooked that and should have mentioned all of this when we were talking about the payroll stuff. Does anybody have any questions? Again, we'll, you know, as always, we'll be talking about this you know, more details will come out as we're putting these changes in place in the software. Yes, Vicky, I will be more than happy to share this. And like I said, it will be provided, information will be provided at the prioritization working group as well. But let me go ahead and stop sharing and I will turn it over to Michelle. And in the meantime, I'll share this document for you all to have a copy of.
Thank you, Lori.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Lori. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'm just going to wrap things up real quick here. Okay. And so just what I want to wrap things up with is our training sessions that are coming up. And the exciting news, I believe Mary was talking about, was Ippy Dippy. I know we have listed their Ippy Dippy preview, and it's pretty much an overview. And it is going to be next Friday. And I just wanted to point this one out because it's probably going to be a longer session, at least 2 hours, at least. We're going to be covering the Ippy Dippy conversion guidelines. We are going to go through and just talk about the import documentation and also the user manual and the information in there. Amanda's going to run through and just show you the application and run through the different options available in there. So it will be a longer session, and we are going to record it as well. So if you aren't able to attend, then it will be recorded. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty in-depth session on the new Ippy Dippy application. Ippy Dippy is supposed to be released, I believe, next week. I don't have a specific day yet that it's going to be released, but they are projecting the initial release to go out next week. So that's exciting. Also, we didn't have a June newsletter. But we are definitely, we just ran out of time, too busy. But we are going to be doing a July newsletter, and in the July newsletter, our feature article is going to talk about Ippy Dippy, and just maybe some questions that districts may have regarding the beginning of that. We aren't going to post the newsletter or publish it until after we have our training session with you all next week, because we're going to review some of the information we have in the newsletter with you first to give you a heads up of what's going to be published. So we'll share that again next week with you. So yeah, that's the big training session that's coming up is Ippy Dippy. Do you guys have any questions about that session before I move on to the next? Okay. Just make sure. Anything else here? Nope. And then moving into August, we will have our July recap session that first day of August. And then I know that some of the things we talked about, the updates that were made were in regard to W2 digital delivery. We're going to be doing a session on that, covering both the USPS and the ESS side of the W2 digital delivery. So that'll be on August 15th. And then September, we're moving into OEDSA. And so we are trying to finalize the sessions for SSDT at OEDSA. Registration and the opening of the conference is going to take place August 4th. So you will be able to see the agenda on the OEDSA website at that time, and it will contain SSDT's sessions on there. And I believe that's all I had. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So do you have any other questions? Okay. If not, everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.